be exactly what you want to be without all of the fear around you. We have to stand up together. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Chairman Project with me, your humble host, Jason Sisneros. This week is going to be fantastic. This is the title of this show, as you know, and this series that we do is Conversations with Chairmen, chairwomen, chairpersons, whatever people like to be called these days. But this is where we take all of the conversations that we have over the years and the implementation into your own life, and we talk to somebody who's traveled and gone on the journey that you've gone on. Today we have David Schmidt with us. He's the founder, CEO of LifeWave, and we cross paths in a pretty unique way. Those of you know, you've heard me talk about different things that I do in business. I'm constantly talking about the fact that to be successful, you have to optimize your health. It is one of the key components. It's one of the foundational pieces that you have to have is your health. And David has put together an unbelievable product. We're going to talk about it, but he's also built along the way in service of other people. He's built a $405 million company and is winning awards in his industry as a top performer with integrity and with service, and it's really delivering for people. So I want everybody to, you guys can do a lot of research. There's a couple of things that I asked him before we started the show that he was proud of. And much like a lot of the producers in the world, they're very humble. They don't really like talking about themselves. So you can go and Google him and get all the background. He's a unbelievably intellectual man. He's done some incredible things, how many patents he has, all that kind of stuff. But the two things that he said today was the fact that he started this company that's over $400 million a year now. He started it in his bedroom. And that is amazing to think of for your own journey. And that he had a dream, like all of us. We all had a dream of what we wanted to do when we grew up. And he had a dream when he was 7 or 8 years old to become an inventor. And boy, oh boy, has he done that. So welcome to the show, David. As you know, I've been excited to have this conversation. Let us know a little bit about you that you think is important, and a little bit about the company that we're going to be talking about.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure, and thank you so much for your time today. Really looking forward to this. Well, I think the first thing, since your audience is entrepreneurs, I've wanted to be an entrepreneur most of my life. Since I was in college, I knew that going down the road of working for a company for 30 or 40 years was not going to be my path in life. And I tried a few different businesses along the way. I owned a computer business in my 20s, which was successful. And then I started a business with a group of guys, engineers, and we were designing equipment for the US Navy through government contractors. And that was by and large a successful business. And then that led me into LifeWave. So an entrepreneur's path is very interesting. Sometimes we start with the idea that, wow, this new company is going to be what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And then circumstances change and we find it was a learning experience. And then we can move on to some other things. And now, I did not start LifeWave until my late 30s. And it's really been an incredible life-changing journey in so many different ways. And today we get to help literally millions of people all over the planet. So it's incredibly rewarding.
That's awesome. You and I, one of the first conversations that we talked about the fact that I identify with Batman and you identify with Iron Man, which is obvious, back there. I'm dressed a little bit more like Tony Stark today, and you're dressed a little bit more like Batman.
Right. Right. That's true. And, Iron Man, of course, is a billionaire inventor. And so I think I resonated with him from when I was very young and was reading comic books. And I had no idea the impact that comic was going to have on my life. But yeah, I think once you cross 100 patents, then I think you can say you're an inventor.
That's right. Yep, it's well earned, well earned. Well, tell us a little bit about the company that you started back in 2002. I think you finally got it kicked off 2004. Tell us a little bit about what the product is. Let's get that out of the way so everybody understands exactly what we're talking about. And by the way, when you start talking about these patches, I have one here, I have one on my belly, I have one on my heel right now. It is something that and again, those of you that have followed the show understand that I'm constantly dialing in my business or my health because I want to be able to perform and serve at a much higher level. This was an instant game changer right off the bat. And my wife and I both said, oh, sure, some patches, this is going to be another thing that we're going to do. And both of us had almost the same conversation with each other. We looked at each other one night, and she had put on the ice wave patches for some pain in her back, and she goes, I don't want to admit this, but these work.
Well, when I started the company in 2002, the circumstances were very interesting in the sense that it probably was not the ideal way that you want to go and start a business. But as with anything in life, when we're presented with an opportunity, we can either say yes or no. And so obviously that was a path that I pursued. But I had been working for a number of years designing equipment for subs. And the last thing I had in my mind was starting a network marketing company. I originally invented this technology for use of Navy SEALs on a mini sub, and that's what I was thinking at the time. But then when 9/11 hit, it really changed everything. My team, we were working on emergency systems, and the government wasn't interested in that after 9/11. They were interested in weapon systems and other tactical information and equipment. And so the people that I was working with at government contractors, you couldn't get in touch with them anymore. They were busy doing other things. So I had a family to support, and our contracts were frozen during this period of time. And so, as a practical matter, I had to start thinking after 6, 8, 9 months, what am I going to do to support myself and my family? So I started thinking, well, this technology, which I developed and own, um, because it improves energy by elevating fat burning, I'm sure I can find people in the public that are going to be interested in something like this. So I started, I
Energy
started
and
to,
fat burning. Weird. It's
right.
weird.
So I started to take samples of the product and show it to business friends. And I had two business friends contact me and say, "Hey, if you set up a company to market this, I would like to invest in that business." So I thought, okay, the interest is there, the money is there. I think these are some good signs. I should go out and probably start the business. And then during the first 6 months, like with any startup, it was really rough. You're spending money, you don't have money coming in, you're trying to learn what's the best business model. So I think for any entrepreneur, it's so important to plan, have adequate money, have a business plan, but be able to adapt. Realize that in the startup phase, your business is organic. It can change, and you should be able to adapt to those circumstances. And where I'm going with this is originally I just wanted to be an inventor and provide these products to the military. And then eventually, when I went into the public, I looked at radio advertising, TV advertising, but eventually ended up with network marketing, and that turned out to be a phenomenal choice as it's turned out.
What was the intent, your original, your inception thought, when you were building this product and this technology? What was the original outcome that you had intended for it?
So one of my inventions was a turbine. And this was what was unusual about it is that the turbine didn't have any blades and it could run on any fuel.
Hmm.
And if there's an engineer listening, they're going to say, okay, well, that's impossible. But literally with this turbine, you could start it off on propane gas and then switch to a liquid fuel or a solid fuel while it was running. And you could even put your hand on the combustion chamber of the engine, and it was only warm to the touch.
Hmm.
That was something that I had been working on. And one day, I had my labs up in Dahlonega, Georgia, and it was a beautiful drive through the mountains. Dahlonega is where the Army Rangers practice.
Mhm.
And I would have a beautiful drive around Lake Lanier to go to my house in Beaufort, Georgia. And I remember I was coming around the lake and I was thinking, okay, this engine works based on a vortex flow. And um, there must be a vortex flow in human cells. This was the idea that was downloaded into my brain. So I began to think about that. What would this vortex flow look like? Because we could use this as a communications channel.
Mm.
And this was the first idea that I had that led to the development of the patches, is that we might be able to have a device to communicate with the cells in a completely different way that hasn't been done before.
Okay. And to communicate, so in the early inception thought, just that thought, but to communicate to do what?
Well, in this particular case, we wanted to improve energy
Mm.
for the crew, which would improve survivability. So at that time, um, special ops guys were using amphetamines, caffeine, any type of pep pill to stay awake. And they'd have to go on missions, which would be 30, 60 hours. And there were a number of cases, such as with the pilot of a Canadian fighter, where he was taking amphetamines and it resulted in an accident. So I thought, well, I've been interested in health my entire life. If we could find a natural way of increasing energy in the body, this would be a huge advantage. And the best source of energy on the body is fat. We get over twice as many calories from fat burning as we do from carbohydrates. So if we could have a way of communicating with the cell and say, hey, I know you're burning carbohydrates, but switch and burn fats instead, then that would be a very constant, stable level of energy. What I wasn't thinking at the time was that this would be a very powerful anti-aging mechanism.
Mm.
As it turns out, um, beta oxidation or fatty acid metabolism is closely linked to the function of the mitochondria in the body, the powerhouse of the cell. And as we age, no surprise, the ability of our body to burn fat declines, and we switch over to glucose, sugar metabolism. So if we can keep the body in fat burning, it has very powerful anti-aging effects. But at the time, that was what I was thinking. Just want to have some new way of improving the energy for the crew so we could improve their survivability.
I love this. This is so, I love talking to entrepreneurs because you're like, what am I doing today? I'm building, turbines for nuclear subs. What am I doing tomorrow? Patches for fat burning. It makes total sense.
Well, yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a little bit like that. We had uh, I invented a welding torch when I was there because guys were picking up welding torches when they were hot and
Mm.
getting injured. So I developed a welding torch without a cooling jacket that developed a vortex flow in the welding torch. So you could actually, I would do this demo for other engineers where I would hold the welding torch while it was on. So you'd have, close to a 3,000-degree flame at one end, and your hand was half an inch away, and it was totally cool. Um,
Wow.
so that was, those were the type of wide-ranging things that I was allowed to work on.
Yeah, I love it. And the story, it's interesting because there's three reasons why businesses fail. One is they don't have the proper capital. You already addressed that. The next one is you don't have management skills. We'll talk about this at the end of the show, this core four that I talk about a lot, and get your feedback on that. And then the third one is um, inventing or going to market with something that people don't need or want. Right. And that's about out of the 95% of companies that fail, that's a third of those is because they come up with a great idea, but you're an inventor. And we talk about a lot in business that business is an intellectual sport. And we talk about football and all these, but it's an intellectual sport. It's how you can use your mind. And what you were doing was you were solving problems, right? There's a movie called Robots, and one of them there's this is reminds me of you, not because you're shaped like him, but because of the way your brain works. But there was the one of the characters, Robin Williams was the main character, but there was this character called Big Weld, and Big Weld had a saying: find a need, fill a need, or find a need, fill a need. That was his whole company's motto. And so that's the service pivot that good entrepreneurs that become good business owners that then can become the chairman, chairperson, chairwoman of their own lives, is pivoting towards solving problems for people. And I love
Yeah,
that that's the exact journey that you've gone on. Everybody looks at you today and they say, oh, $400 million or $400 million a year company, all these awards. But if they would have seen you back then, right, in
yeah,
2002, and the turbine, and they would see themselves. A lot of entrepreneurs that watch the show, they're like, oh, Jason, you've got something special. David, you've got something special. No, it's just understanding that there's systems and processes to follow, that business, after time after time after time, when it's executed in the right way, eventually when you fall in love with other people's outcome, you will succeed yourself instead of the
absolutely.
other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that prayer is definitely the best tool that I've always had in my tool chest for dealing with any variety of different things that comes up. It's so important that people lead a life of prayer, develop a relationship with God, look to what's God's will in a particular situation, and then, do your best to follow that. But for entrepreneurs that are starting their business, they're entering into some challenges. I would say that when I started LifeWave, I had my ability, my superpower was being able to invent, and but I didn't have the management experience that I needed. I had some, but certainly not even close to the type of experience I have today. And I was undercapitalized. And so I would say it's okay if you don't have everything in place, but you do need to be thinking about, how am I going to go out and raise this capital? What am I willing to give up for that? Thinking about, the long term, that you still want to be in control of your business. There was many times where I was offered money and I turned it down because I wasn't willing to give up, 25% of my company. And then there were I've probably made more mistakes uh, over the years, than making good good decisions. So it's totally okay to make decisions where they're wrong and they don't pan out. Sometimes you hire people and you think they're going to do a good job, and then it doesn't turn out that way. Those mistakes are going to happen, but what really matters is, how do you respond to that? You can get upset, you can get depressed, um, any variety. You can want to give up, but what's really important is that you use these experience for character building. You find out, are you truly dedicated to this direction that you're taking your life in? Are you dedicated to a cause? Um, because they say in Batman, if you're dedicated to an ideal, then you become something else and no one can stop you,
That's
right?
right.
And that's really important. So for an entrepreneur, you really want to know, what is it that I'm doing here to benefit humanity? How is what I'm doing going to be of value to other human beings? If you're not thinking about those things, it's a huge mistake, because eventually the forces in the world are going to wear you down.
Right.
But if you're committed to this ideal, hey, I'm doing this because I want to make people's lives better. That's why I'm doing it. If that becomes your focus, then no one's going to stop you.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more. And I'm a recent Christian. fairly new, 4 years ago. Got baptized with my wife, with Pastor Rudy, the guy that founded certain ministries where we do rescues. And it was because of what you just said. When I very first met Pastor Rudy, one of my conversations with him was, I'll come and rescue with you, but don't come at me with your Jesus stuff. Right.
Yeah.
What an arrogant, I think back to some of the stupidest things I've said. That was one of them. And he smiled, and he said, that's cool. Just come out and rescue with us. And rescuing with him, you just see miracle after miracle. I'm sure in the health world, you've seen miracle after miracle after miracle. And I was just like, I can't deny it anymore. And that's when I decided to become a Christian. And it really does provide a superpower of discernment to pray and to seek that wisdom and to seek that guidance. I love that. And now over all of these years, because what we talk about in our community is falling in love with the outcome of your client, right? It's really a humble step. It's ethical capitalism versus unethical capitalism. And we have very, very, very clear lines between the two these days. We see unethical capitalism around us. We see, I'm going to get mine. We see that, and it's not sustainable. It's never been sustainable throughout history. And what I'm doing and what my mission is to highlight ethical capitalism, because it's the thing that changed the world, right? It is blessed by God. I think that it is in the Bible. The running a company ethically is biblical in nature. You can break it down to the principles all the way to the parable of the talents. And so I love that your business does that in a couple of ways. Network marketing, a lot of people, I've never really been involved in the industry very much, but I've always had an admiration for it, because if you don't have a lot of startup capital, then the greatest thing, and I've told people this throughout my entire career, if you don't have a lot of capital, go sell for somebody else that put in the risk, that risked everything, that probably failed a couple times, probably didn't pay themselves for a couple of years. Go use somebody else's machine, and all you have to do is sell. And there's no better business model than network marketing, and because they literally, there's no startup costs. I mean, not none, but it's what you get is in product.
No, it's absolutely true. The amount of money that we've had to spend in just clinical studies, forget about the research behind it, is millions of dollars.
Yeah.
We spent $4 million 2 years ago upgrading our equipment where it would be fully automated with visual inspection systems that are automated, robotics. And so all of these things take an enormous amount of capital. And of course, you do these things over time. But for an entrepreneur, as you say, it's really ideal. You can say, okay, I have good skills at sales and marketing. I love health, but I don't have all this other, time. So what am I going to do? And in networking with a company like LifeWave, we've put in the time to do the clinical studies, set up the manufacturing, put all the systems in place, and now somebody can come in with very, very little money and have a business that's up and running and get paid the very first month. And that's really unheard of for an entrepreneur outside of networking. So it's an amazing industry in that regard.
It is. And then you add to it, because again, one of the other things that I've told people is never try to sell something that you don't believe in. Right. And that's what I have found, like, as I've been using the patches myself, because I cannot open my mouth unless I believe in something. Right. And it doesn't matter if it's my best friend or my brother. If their product sucks, I'm going to say it sucks. And, because I have to be honest. And, and as I was using these patches, because when I do something new, I benchmark. I say, okay, I've got my blood test done for the quarter. I'm constantly upgrading my health. I'm constantly doing something every quarter. Well, your patches were the thing for the quarter. And I'm watching, there's multiple things. There's clarity of thought, there's energy, there's the pain patches. But for me, one of the biggest components, again, energy. I'm running at top level every minute of every day. And it's, I love it. Like that is, it's the best way to experience life. I don't want to experience life on my back. I don't want to experience it, binging on Netflix. I want to binge life. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I told my wife this about 7 days ago, I said, I'm doing nothing different. I fight every morning at the boxing gym. I go and lift. We walk sometimes. My wife's much more of a walker, and we watch what we eat, supplement appropriately. But I said, my body fat is dropping faster than I've ever seen it before, and it's just melting. This is one of the things, doing nothing different, right? Which, to your point, is I've been drinking less coffee. This is hot cocoa, just because I like hot. You know what I mean? It's not.
I got my water here.
Yeah, it's like I love warm drinks, and so it's hot cocoa and honey, and that leads to a more sustained energy level. And in the gym, I'm 52 years old, and I'm straight crushing, guys half my age in the sustainability. So it's been amazing to watch. Hi, my name is Jason Sisneros, founder and chairman of Anton J Global, a world-class business consulting company that has helped hundreds of clients and thousands of growth course students fix, scale, and successfully master their businesses. To put it simply, my team and I help people turn their businesses into machines that create cash. To better support startups and other mid-sized companies, my team and I developed a phenomenal and comprehensive digital growth course where I poured decades of business ownership and know-how into 20 hours of content. This course is not easy. It's not an easy pill, but demands real work from you to implement the blueprints that I've developed. We know that reaching financial freedom is never easy, but totally worth it. Go to growthcourse.com right now to learn more about the course and get started on your business journey today. Talk a little bit about the product line and a little bit of the science behind it, because I'm gonna keep throwing business stuff at you. I want everybody to know and understand what I'm so fired up about and why it actually works.
Yeah. Well, so the products work by stimulating the body with light. And what's so interesting about this, foundationally, there has been a tremendous amount of research that's been done in the last 20 years to validate technology like LifeWave. The history of light therapy actually goes back thousands of years. In India, they were using different colored lights for healing. In ancient Greece, they did it. And back in the early 1900s, there was a Danish scientist who won a Nobel Prize for the use of light therapy. But it really hasn't been until perhaps the past 10 to 15 years that light therapy has been valid as a scientific phenomena. And what I mean by that is that if we went back 20 years ago when I started LifeWave, uh, light therapy was really thought of as being quackery. It was thought of as really not having a basis. However, in secret, the Department of Defense was investing millions of dollars through the Department of the Navy to look at a phenomena called photo repair, where we can accelerate the regeneration of damaged tissue using very low levels of light. From the 70s, there was a scientist in Germany called Fritz Popp, and he was finding that out of all living cells, didn't matter if it was human beings, plants, animals, if you take these cells and you put them in a room that's completely dark, and then use a piece of equipment called a photomultiplier tube, you could actually measure wavelengths of light coming off of all living cells. And the light was coherent, just like a laser. So the significance of this is that in human beings, from the DNA, from the cell nucleus, there are pulses of light that are being emitted that are highly coherent. What that means, they're of a single wavelength. And this is one of the systems that our cells use for communication. So the DNA emits a pulse of light, and this light, these photons of light, will initiate a biochemical reaction in the body. So researchers like Dr. Jerry Tennant, Dr. Becker had found that the energy systems of the body control the biochemistry. So this is incredibly powerful. A very simple example of this is okay, so let's say you're 52 and you look fantastic, by the way. I think most
Thank you.
52-year-olds would want to be in the kind of physical shape that you're in.
Thank you.
Um, Now let's say we know that testosterone levels in men are going to be declining after we get over the age of 30. And what do we do to elevate testosterone naturally? Well, if we go out in the sun and we let the androgen receptors on our upper shoulders, our traps, get exposed to UV light, that will cause an increase in testosterone in men.
Hmm.
So we don't necessarily have to look for herbs or hormone therapy. We can use light to elevate testosterone. That's one example. Everyone knows that we can use light to elevate vitamin D. And this is because the body has receptors that are activated by different wavelengths of light. So when I invented light wave technology, it was based on this principle that we could use different wavelengths of light to turn on different biochemical systems in the cell, and this would result in a certain benefit. So in the first product, this was turning on fat burning. In other products, we found ways to detoxify the body, reduce pain, improve the quality of sleep, anti-aging effects, and of course, with X39, we're elevating a peptide called GHK or copper peptide. And this single peptide has a phenomenal number of benefits at improving overall health and wellness in the body. So in your example, you use X39, and we see statistically that it has significant impact on people's physical strength, stamina, flexibility, and other measures of physical performance.
How about the X49? Because I've
Yeah,
got
so
both of them on. I've got both of them on today.
yeah, so X49 is interesting because we X49 is designed to elevate the other copper peptide known as AHK. So to understand this, first we would say that um, copper peptide GHK is a tripeptide. So it's based on glycine, histidine, and lysine. So these are common amino acids that are synthesized into this peptide. And what's special about GHK is that it has a very high affinity for binding with copper. And as a result, that's where some of the magic occurs. In AHK or X49, that's an alanine histidine lysine. And the difference between the two is that glycine is ubiquitous. It's found throughout the entire body, whereas alanine metabolism occurs principally in the brain, the heart, and also in the muscle. So X39 is for overall health, and then for X49, people that are interested in improving their memory, their focus, supporting the health of their heart, and building lean muscle, uh, that would be the application for X49.
Love that. There's a Aeon patch as well that I've really loved for sleep. Could you explain that one to us a little bit?
So Eon
Oh,
had,
Eon.
yeah,
It's
Eon,
spelled a little
Eon,
different.
yeah, Eon. That was a really fun product to develop, and it has an interesting backstory because I was at a party with a group of doctors and scientists, and we happened to be talking about longevity. And one of the doctors there, Dr. Stan Berzinski, who's an incredible person, brilliant guy, he was doing these experiments where he was taking a peptide that he had found in urine that declines with age. And he was injecting this peptide into bees.
Hmm.
And he was seeing that there is this discrepancy in a queen bee. Queen bee will live 50 to 60 times longer than a worker bee. And he isolated a peptide from royal jelly. So the worker bees are eating honey, and the queen is consuming this royal jelly. That's how it got its name.
Hmm.
And so he said, okay, it must be something in the food that the queen is eating that's allowing for these really long lifespans. So it turned out to be a peptide that's naturally found in the liver that human beings excrete in the urine. So he was able to synthesize the peptide and inject it into the worker bees, and it would increase their lifespan by 5 to 6 times just from one injection.
Wow.
So I thought, I want to have a patch that does that.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't want to age. I want to maintain my health, stay young as long as forever. How do I get this thing? So, long story short is it doesn't work in human beings because it has such a short half-life, and you'd have to be on it 20 hours a day. But the
Mm.
beauty of the patches is you stick the patch on and it will stimulate the skin to make this peptide. So you don't have to get it through a supplement or an injection. But in any case, I designed the Eon patch to elevate this peptide, and what we discovered was that it was acting like a broad spectrum anti-inflammatory. You'd apply it to people, and they get a reduction in their body's levels of stress, and it would happen very quickly. So we market the product for stress management, but in fact, it has a number of very significant health benefits.
I love that. Um, so when are you going to come out with bodysuits made out of this stuff?
The interesting thing is that you don't have to cover your body in patches and you don't have to have a suit for it. The really
Yeah, I'm of
interesting,
the opinion that if a little's great, a lot is better, right? And it's not
yeah,
always true.
no, it's not. It's not. In the human body, actually, it only takes a few packets of photons, very, very small amount of light to actually turn on a biochemical process. So this is one of these things where a small amount goes a very, very long way. Now, there are going to be cases where people have chronic pain, and we have a product to help assist with pain management. And you can apply these patches, one set on the lower torso and one set on the upper torso, and that will help to manage pain throughout the entire body. But generally speaking, one patch of each kind is plenty.
Yeah. Well, I found that because I tried two one time and it spun me out. I was like, I got too
Yeah,
much
that
energy.
that can happen. That it can be a little too much. That's true.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the other products that you have. Like if you could just spin through them really quickly. What is the product line, and maybe what people could be looking at it. They obviously can go to my website. You go to jasonsisneros.com, you'll see BTE built to exit health. It's under there. All of the explanations, a lot of the research that you're going to want to do is available on that site. But what are some, you don't have to go through the whole line. Just tell me a couple of your other favorites.
Yeah. So obviously X39 and X49, those are our lead products. And when someone is starting off, they should start with X39. That's the simple way to go. The energy patches were the very first product that I invented. People still use it today. Many people get plenty of energy from just X39, but we still have people, athletes, that like the energy patches and it finds that they help them. Ice Wave has been incredibly popular because such a high percentage of the population, unfortunately, suffers with some type of acute or chronic pain. So Ice Wave has helped people all over the planet uh, with a natural way of managing pain and reducing pain quite quickly. We also have another product called Silent Nights, and this is a natural way of improving melatonin levels in the body. It doesn't have any melatonin in it. So, in other words, this is still stimulating the body with light. So, you apply it in the evening, and it helps promote uh, very restful sleep. So people that are struggling with their sleep could really benefit with Silent Nights.
Love that. All right. I've been hearing some rumors about some anti-aging stuff that you've got in the hamper here, or in the hopper, sorry, that is based on researching in the animal kingdom some animals that don't age,
Right.
ants and lobsters in particular. So, talk to us about what's coming. Again, I'm here. Again, everybody who's been following me for years and years and years, I have never done a show where I promote a product. Never. I will talk about maybe something I'm using or whatever it is. So this is going to be shocking to some people because I believe in the product and the company. I believe in this man here as a man of integrity, a godly man, somebody who is definitely stepping up for and giving opportunity to a tremendous amount of entrepreneurs that otherwise wouldn't have it, and doing all of that by increasing health and by falling in love with the outcome of the user of the product. That's why I believe it's a $400 million company, and he's been able to overcome some amazing things in his career. But I would like to know from you if you can shed some light on some stuff that you have coming up.
Sure thing. I would say, as a company, what we're looking at today is how can we do the most good in the world? And so we're taking a percentage of the money that we make and donating it to good causes. So, for example, there's one charity that we've been looking at, which is doing a cleanup of the ocean
Mm.
and removing the microplastics from the ocean. And that's something that we're very interested in getting involved with, these types of things. In terms of future products, I'm very concerned about the integrity of our food supply. And so we've looked at technologies here and have some patents on new tech to allow people to grow food in their home in a completely new way that hasn't been available before. And we're also looking at power generation. I have a background in different methods of generating power, and we've come up with some things that would be incredibly useful for people to power their homes and, when we're forced to, electric cars. That would allow people to be off the grid and generate energy in a very clean and sustainable way that's good for the planet. But shorter term,
Well,
what we
wait a minute, because you just broached a couple of issues that are because this is sort of my world as well. I hope you're protected, because when you start talking about interrupting these these industries by helping people be self-sustaining, it causes a few waves. So I just hope you're taking care of yourself and that you're protecting yourself.
thank you. I appreciate that. I do think about those kind of things,
Mhm.
and we also think about how can we introduce these things out into the world without creating problems. But sometimes you're going to make some waves, and sometimes that's a decision that you're going to make. But the fact of the matter is that it should alarm people how much land that Bill Gates owns at this point and what he's doing with that land.
Right.
It should bother people that what some of the elites are talking about is they want us to get us to eat bugs,
Right.
or products derived from that. So I think some of the trends are with food and also with power generation are concerning.
Yeah.
Um, and so entrepreneurs should be looking at perhaps better ways to do that. And of course, then there's opportunities there. There's always going to be a segment of the population that are concerned about the level of genetic modification in the food supply, or in this case, also vaccines now
Yeah.
in the food supply.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thank you for thinking about that. And that's my community where, yeah, that we've been through this whole entire thing for years now. And it really does come down to the idea that we're banding together, right? I believe that business owners are some of the most ethical, hardworking, sacrificial people, honest. We don't have room for racism. We don't have room for misogyny. We don't have room for all of the things that we have out there because we're busy serving. And I
Okay.
love that you, because that's we've all kind of looked around and go, oh, we need each other, in the business community, especially because for the most part we do our thing, right? We build our businesses and we do our thing. We don't really have time for a whole bunch of other things because we're busy working, supporting, our staff, supporting our churches, supporting our synagogues, whatever it is that we happen to have going on. But this has woken this community up at a high level. And I love the idea of the network in general, much less the marketing, because it gives us a chance to bond together and to be together and to speak together and to lift each other up with products like yours, with a mind like yours that can solve the problem, which is that's the entire reason behind entrepreneurship, is to
Absolutely.
innovate, right? Like, old companies age out and then new companies come in. That is the natural way of the best version of entrepreneurship, right? And so you bringing these ideas, all of us out here being able to take them and apply them, give feedback, how it's working for us, for our families. That is ethical capitalism 101. So thank you for the way that your mind works and the fact that you're coming up with some of these solutions.
I completely agree that entrepreneurship is incredibly healthy as an organism, and we should be phasing out old ideas that aren't relevant anymore and bringing some new things in. But some of the new things that are coming in from companies like the genetically modified meats, the FDA approved Impossible with, I believe it was 57 compounds that were
Right.
unidentified. It's insanity.
It is
So,
insanity.
I certainly don't want to put that in my body.
Right.
And then there's microplastics in the food supply, so they act as xenoestrogens. There's all the contaminants that we know about. And so, for people to be able to protect and maintain their health, we are going to need some alternatives. We're going to need to be able to have a food source that is not contaminated and we know actually contains nutrients that are good for us. Even this new coating that Bill Gates is behind, a peel. And on the surface, it sounds pretty good. You're going to put this coating around a fruit or vegetable, and it's going to stay fresher longer. Well, the problem with that is that after you pick a piece of fruit off of a tree or take a vegetable off the vine, the amount of nutrition in that produce declines rapidly with time within a period of a few days. And that's why it goes rotten in the first place. So if you're preserving the fruit and you're making it look fresh over a period of a few weeks, actually the nutrition level has become quite diminished. So the net end result of this is that we can expect the rates of obesity to increase because people will be taking in dead calories and our bodies are going to be starving for nutrition. So these are some of the problems that we're being faced with now. And
But you say it quite clearly, and forgive me or correct me if I say it incorrectly, but you say pretty clearly that the two types of degradation in our health or our energy levels, it comes from oxidative stress and from inflammation. And so when those two things are involved, like the coating on all these, like, that is creating you're not just getting the proper nutrition, but you're also putting other chemicals and other things in your body that causes oxidative stress and inflammation. Is that correct?
well, okay, let's use an example. Let's say that we were to consume an orange
Mm-hmm.
and that orange did not have any nutrition in it, like the bioflavonoids, vitamin C, and the process of creating energy in our cells generates metabolic waste. So we're going to produce oxidative chemicals as a result of just living, of eating.
Yeah.
Now, the nutrition that's in that fruit would normally protect our bodies from that oxidative stress. So if it's not there, our body is going to experience oxidative stress it might not normally have because the nutrition in that food is gone. So this would be the concern.
Are you a business owner that's looking to build your company into a machine that creates cash? I'm Jason Sisneros, chairman and founder of Anton J Global, a world-class business consulting company that has turned around, merged, or prepped for sale hundreds of companies just like yours. I'm best known as the architect when it comes to fixing and building companies across the globe. My experience comes from owning and exiting over 20 of my own companies successfully. It's that real-world experience that I've converted into the ultimate blueprint that has saved and grown my clients' businesses. If you're tired of getting bad advice, have bought all the books, all the coaching programs, and still aren't seeing the success that you were promised, it might be time to work with a team that has actual experience and a track record of success. Please scan the QR code or visit antonj.com to schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if we can help you reach your outcomes. That's antonj.com, ANTONJAE.com. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the anti-aging stuff. I want to hear a little bit about the ants and the lobsters.
Yeah, we began this research back in 2010, and this is actually probably a great lesson for entrepreneurs because it shows that you can start going down one path and then many other great things can come from it. We started this project in the late 2000s, around 2010 or so, we started to move it forward. And I had been doing research with my team on pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. And basically, the idea was to create new technology that could accelerate the rate at which people heal. Hmm. And I went and spoke with Dr. Tim O'Brien at the National University of Ireland in Galway. And Dr. O'Brien runs the Regenerative Medicine Institute there. And I gave him a proposal on how we might use this technology to activate the stem cells in the body and do this with the stem cells already inside the body as opposed to an injection. And we ended up getting our project accepted, and it was funded by Scientific Foundation Ireland. So what we discovered in those early days was that you could treat the body with a very specific type of electromagnetic field, and the rate of healing would be equivalent to injecting stem cells. So this was a very, very significant discovery. Well, what happens in species that don't age, and I suppose first thing, it's important for people to know that there are certain species on the planet that do not age. They would be known as planaria, which are a flatworm, something called a hydractinia, which is a small sea creature with tentacles, tardigrades, which are these microscopic things called water bears. Also, ants have the ability to defy the normal aging process, as do lobsters. So there's a number of these species. And one of the reasons why they don't age is because of their stem cells. As the stem cells differentiate and turn into regular cells that we would know, and they begin to reproduce, they don't change through that reproductive cycle. So in a human being, as our cells divide, one of the noticeable changes is in the telomeres. The telomeres control the cell division and the telomeres shrink. Well, in these species like planaria, when the cells divide, the telomeres don't shrink, they don't shorten. And we wanted to see if we could study these organisms and, find out how is this all happening. So I was doing a Bible study, and I was thinking about how God said, well, don't eat the blood of animals. Don't consume the blood of animals because the life is in the blood. And I thought to myself, maybe it's literally that simple, that there's something in blood that's causing this effect. And I thought, well, in human beings, the blood, now I'm a big Star Trek fan. And in human beings, blood is based on iron. But in Star Trek, you have a species of Vulcans, Mr. Spock, and my nickname in college was Spock. Their blood is based on copper. And in a lobster, their blood is based on copper. It's called the sera. And the compound is called hemocyanin. Well, in any case, I decided to start looking at the spectrophotometry data on lobster blood, and indeed found some unusual things. I saw a pattern that started to emerge. and began to create in our labs with our team some devices that could mimic how lobsters were essentially preventing the decay of their cells. And we received a number of patents on a few different techniques that I invented and we developed here. Well, years go by, and we get our first human pilot study, and we're showing these phenomenal effects. And I was like, okay, we did it. This is actually working. Maybe about 6 weeks after that, in I'm taking a Bible study, and this is a study on the book of Genesis. And in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And in the study, we're converting English over to the original Hebrew, and then Hebrew, each letter over to its numerical value. And I start to see the same. I got out my calculator and I thought, I think I'm seeing the same pattern I saw in lobsters. And there it was. The ratios of the numbers were identical to the ratios of the data I found in lobsters that's preventing them from aging. So, in other words, there is a God. God created everything. The Bible is the inspired word of God. And when God created everything, he put a mathematical signature into those living organisms that we can now refer back to and say, yeah, Bible is true. It's
Mm.
right there. It's math. It's
It's
incredible.
interesting when you think, because in the beginning there was the word was God, and then things were created, but the first words spoken were, let there be light,
That's right.
right?
And
Isn't
the
that's
amazing thing is that so the New Testament, the book of John, was written in Greek, and Greek is the other language where you can convert the letters over to a numerical value. And interestingly, uh, the numerical pattern that appears in the book of Genesis and the numerical pattern that appears in the book of John are also identical.
mm. And that number is 857.
Uh, oh, that's the number for the tree of life.
Oh, okay.
Which was something else that happened to discover. I didn't see that in the Bible study.
Oh,
Uh, there's a numerical pattern of 3, 7, and 7, 3, which keeps coming up, and also the numbers 3, 1, 3.
okay.
And 37 and 73 are both prime numbers, and 37 is the 12th prime number, 73 is the 21st prime number. So 3,
Those are
7
flipped
mirrors
too.
7, 3, 12 mirrors 21, and it gets even more incredible than that.
Wow. That's phenomenal. So that's what's coming, right? That's what's coming in the company. I've done a lot of research on the quality of your company, the people that are involved in your company. And I'm proud to be a member. I'm proud to be a partner. I'm proud to be somebody who is using the product myself. And I'm proud of the company that you've built and the integrity, the energy. There's a culture, right? And there's four. We talk about the core four in business all the time, because you have to build. There's a lot of people that are out there going, oh my gosh, you're going to go from $1 million to $125 million, and it's going to happen in 9 months, right? So,
Right.
and it just
Yeah.
doesn't work that way, right? It just
Right.
doesn't work that way. But there's 33 million. I'll give you some of my nerd numbers, since you've given me some of your nerd numbers, right? There's 33 million businesses in this country, right? Out of 330 million people, that's 10%, right? That's 10%. And of that 33 million, 27 million of them do less than $100,000 a year. And so when you're looking at ways to increase your revenue, there's really two key markers as you're building your business. The first one is going from sub $100,000 to 300 grand. That's a benchmark to get to 300,000. And then from 300,000 to 750,000, that there's a transition that gets into starting to understand systemizing and acquiring your first employee. All right, that's that magic. And then you get into what I believe is the true 10% is anybody that has an employee. Now, so what we talk about is starting to learn what is the premise, how do you get from zero to 300,000. That's your first benchmark. You learn a lot of really amazing things in that process that reset your mind from employee mindset to business owner, right? And same thing from 300 to 750. But we talk a lot about the core four, and I just wanted to get two things from you as we wrap up. You've given me a lot of time today, and I really appreciate it.
Great.
Yeah, it's been great. I knew it was going to be great. I knew we were we're gonna probably have to do follow-up shows, and I can't wait to be speaking at some of the events and have you to some of my events. It'll be great. Um, so two things. Tell us, in your evolution, and I want to finish with your challenges, where a couple of times we talked earlier that you've had a couple of really big challenges. I want to finish the show with that. But tell me the development core four for any business owner to be thinking about is first sales and marketing. That's number one, because you have to have revenue before you ever have a business. That's, unfortunately, that's the way it is. Number two is your operations, which is very simply delivering on the promise that you made in the sales and marketing pitch, right? Making sure that your product and or service is delivering. The third piece is understanding finance. Business speaks, like if I was to go to China, you were to go to China, if we don't know the language, we're going to have an interpreter, or we're going to have to learn the language. And it's very difficult. You've seen some of these interpreters, the sign language people that they're not doing sign language. They're like, I don't know how they think they're going to get away with it. Have you seen some of these people where they're doing the sign language and they don't know sign language? So you have to trust the interpreter, which is most of our bookkeepers and the people that are giving us that information. If we don't understand the nature of it, which is why I love this conversation and I love the way that your brain works, you want to understand the nature of it. Then you can figure out what to do with that data, what that information is. And so finance is the third piece. And the fourth piece, which it should be number one, is culture. It's identifying on purpose, on paper, with very defined bumpers on how your business is going to run, how it's going to treat people, how it's going to appear in the marketplace, how it's going to treat employees, that type of thing. So very quickly, give me some of your feedback as to your thought processes, starting at number one with sales and marketing, and then go through operations, and how you've applied that to your own business.
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. Sales and marketing has to come first, because if you can't sell your product or service, you're not going to have a business. So here in Orlando, where we have our research lab, we are involved with dozens of different new ideas, products all the time. And we're often running experiments to see what can we learn, what will work. And then, of course, that can translate into a product. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to evaluate that and say, well, what is the potential market for this? What type of audience am I really helping? You have to think through the regulatory part. But you do have to think, how am I going to get this to market? So if you have, would say the way that we apply it is because we're in the health industry, we want to avoid the regulatory issues. We don't want to be classified as a drug or a medical device. We want to be in the category of general wellness or class 1. And so that's an important consideration to be thinking about. And then, of course, the channel, how exactly are you going to be getting this to market, and what are the costs associated with that? So of course, many people today, they're going to use the internet, and that's great. And in network marketing, that uses both the internet and face-to-face selling. And one of the huge advantages of networking is that the company doesn't actually pay a commission until the sale is generated. And it's the exact opposite in other businesses. So I would say, the way that we've applied it back in the very early days was to really look at, keep an open mind, and look at all the different types of sales and marketing channels, and then evaluate. Once you have enough information, then evaluate which is going to be the best direction. I did not want to go the direction of network marketing, but the evidence were to bear out that that was the proper direction. So we changed our business focus, and that's where we went. Um, then, in terms of finance for the company, um, in my case, we definitely did not have enough money when we started, but it was enough to get going.
Right.
So you really have to think about, I ran my business out of my home for it was, the first year and a half actually, to save money. And so you have to think about saving every dollar, that you can and spending money wisely. And sometimes you'll make a decision, that's not so good, and that's okay. You can recover. But definitely, people should be thinking about the big picture. How much money are they going to need? Can they raise the money along the way? What are you willing to give up for that capital raise? Can you work something out where when in my particular case, there were circumstances where I decided to take money for investment, but I structured the deal so that I could pay the person back with interest and then recapture the interest in the business. And that worked out great. That worked out really great. I was able to, maintain my ownership of the business over time. So those are, of course, really very, very important things to be thinking about. In terms of company operations, some of this happens over a period of time where you should be thinking about scalability. And if you have, let's say in this case, a product, it's totally fine to use a third party to manufacture the product, but you do have to think about supply chain issues, how that's going to affect your margins. And how are you going to scale that over time? If you're growing very rapidly, which is a great problem, can you scale up fast enough? Do you have multiple suppliers, multiple manufacturing sites? So you really do have to be looking down the road and planning for success. And then, also with respect to culture, that's an interesting one because our LifeWaves culture has changed significantly over time. We started as a company that provided products for improving quality of life, then evolved into an anti-aging company, then evolved into a company of regeneration, and now, really longevity. So that has driven a lot of things in our culture. But ultimately, while that's what our products do and that's how we position ourselves, we do try to infuse into our culture, hey, we're here to help people. We're here to be a symbol of hope. So let's align ourselves with other organizations, donate money to organizations to help people in need, donate our products. Let's be there for people if they can't afford our products and help them. So as a result, we've made donations to Military Order the Purple Heart to provide thousands of families with free product when they couldn't afford it. And we do it because it's the right thing to do. It's not about the money at that part. So you really have to be thinking about all these things.
Well, it was one of the first things that you asked me was, how could you donate some money to the child rescues that we're involved in, and so I know that's a core portion of your heart. And that's we talk a lot about business. You just got a master class from somebody who's actually done it and gone through it, right? And so, but one of the main things, and I say, it's over and over and over again, that the people that are successful in business are the ones that are best at pattern recognition, discipline, execution on strategy, those type of things, and the resilience gene. I one of my favorite people that I ever met with when I was doing research on the brain and and neuroscience and that type of thing. She's still there. She's about 85 years old at this point. Looks like she's 37. But she said there's something that she believes exists, which is called the resilience gene. Right? She hasn't necessarily been able to prove it yet or not, but she is one of the top neuroscientists. Works on TBIs, military, these type of things in brain regeneration. But it got me to thinking, about your story and your resilience, because it hasn't been a straight line. to where you are right now.
Not
So
at all. No,
so tell us a
no.
little bit about that.
Yeah, there have been a lot of bumps along the way, and I'm grateful for all of them, actually. There were many challenges that were very hurtful in a number of ways. There were twice when we were on the verge of bankruptcy. And like you said, sometimes you have to come to work and not take a paycheck to support your employees and the organization. I did that in 2007. I did it for 16 months where I didn't take a paycheck. But I believed in the mission of the business and the future of the company, and I wanted to keep it alive. And that's the sacrifice that it took. Yeah, we came close to a bankruptcy in 2006 from a credit card fraud. We had a distributor that was purchasing stolen credit card data, ordering product and earning commissions off of that. So that resulted in about $1 million loss. And we also lost about 50% of our distributors at the time because they thought the company was going to go under. But thankfully, the people that stayed believed in the vision of the business. They saw us helping people every day, and they didn't want to give that up. So, you just get to work and you keep going and you keep plowing ahead, thinking about different strategies for building. And eventually that worked. And then in 2016, um, and this is an incredible story for entrepreneurs because in 2016, we were the victims of a computer crash. We were trying to implement a new computer system, again, completely out of our control. And for months, the system could not take orders. We didn't have money coming in. And many of the distributors decided to, pack up and leave. They figured, well, that was it, and understandably so. But we went from almost going out of business in 2016 and 17 to going into momentum and becoming the fastest growing company in our industry 4 years in a row.
Mm.
Um, so even when things look dark, and it looks like that there's no hope, pray, ask for guidance, keep at it, keep pushing, and keep thinking about how am I going to get out of this? In our case, I had spent 10 years in stem cell research. We put $4.5 million into it. And I kept going back over my lab notes and I would go into work and say, I am sick of being on the defense. I want to be on the offense. I want to be launching a new product. I want people to be excited about the business. What can I take that I've learned over these 10 years and apply that into a new product? And that's where X39 came from. X39 came from a place where, yeah, if it hadn't worked, we would have gone out of business. Um, but gratefully, God had other plans.
Amen. Amen. Well, I love it. Thank you again for spending so much time with us. If you had to give your younger version of yourself some advice, that would really help accelerate things or help you see through some of those clouds, what would you say to your younger self?
I think, well, now you're asking me this question, and with the understanding that I would never do anything to change the timeline,
Right.
because I don't want to set things off in some kind of parallel reality, like the
Right.
butterfly effect. So I wouldn't want to say anything to my younger self that would change the future. I think that's the point. But
Got
if I
it.
could do that in a way, I think what I'd say is, look, everything you need is already inside you.
Mm.
Pray, um, develop a relationship with God, um, turn to Jesus as your savior because I'm a Christian, and never give up. Dedicate yourself to an ideal. Do this to help people. That has to come first, and then everything else will take care of itself. So if you're doing something with the intention that you really want to improve the lives of other people, everything else will take care of itself because the intention is the correct intention.
Yeah. There it is. There it is. We talk about it every week. You all know that have been watching the show for a while. Welcome to the new, we've seen a big spike in new viewers too. Welcome to you. I've been talking to like it's my crew, but welcome. This has been a fascinating conversation, and how he just wrapped up is the end game, right? The end game that you are seek out for yourself. That's between you and God. It's very unique to 8 billion other people. It's only been imprinted on your heart, and for you to be able to get there, you have to overcome the unique weaknesses and challenges that you have in your own life, just like myself, just like David, and just like everybody that gets to a place where they can serve at a higher level. It's not about getting rich, not about getting yours, it's not about having the fanciest house or the fastest car. It really is, joy can be found, I believe, only in true service of other people. And the more that you do that, the more joy that you experience, and the more success that you have. It's not the way that the world's telling us these days. It's about joy, satisfaction, love, and really supporting the people that are around you, doing something that you're passionate about that is helping other people. So, David, thank you so much for spending so much of your day with us. I look forward to more conversations in the future. Those of you, you know what to do: like, share, get this out to a whole bunch of people. And if you want to know about the product in more depth, go to jasonsisneros.com and you'll see the tab on there, VTE Health. And there's some pages on there that walk you through it. And if you have any questions, just obviously reach out through that channel and we will get back with you. Thank you, David.
Thank
Really
you, Jason.
genuinely appreciate you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you.
Awesome.